Despite the amount of arguing that still goes on about the subject, if creationists were their own species, they would be considered a species in decline, in danger of a slow but inevitable extinction. A couple hundred years ago, they were virtually 100% of the human population. Today in the United States, most surveys show creationists to be around 40% of the population, just behind those that actually understand science at around 45%, leaving about 15% that apparently have no idea or don't care. This is a huge decline in numbers, and eventually the increase in overall population will no longer be able to sustain them. Though it may take centuries, at this rate they will go the way of the dodo bird and become extinct. As with all species, though, I am in favor of keeping a few around, just so we can study them. Won't you give to the Save the Creationists Fund today? Just $5. $5 can buy a child a used copy of the Creationist textbook of Pandas and People. Just $5. With your donation, you'll even get a personalized card with a picture of the creationists that you sponsor. Dig deep, and give. Give until it hurts. Give until you bleed, and you can save a creationist today. Won't you help? When you argue with a creationist in person, it can sometimes be interesting to watch their reactions if you act like you're really fascinated about how they came to this conclusion, as if they're really even more rare than they are. This is best to do with people that you just met, or people that you don't particularly like. Act very earnest and interested, but ask them things like, "Wow, so did the school you went to have all the standard science courses?" Or maybe, "That's incredible, it's been so long since I've actually talked to a creationist. I'm always curious, who was it that originally taught you to ignore science?" You can get creative here. The key is to always act like you're deadly serious, and then proceed to ask them the same types of questions that you would ask someone that maybe grew up in a lost tribe somewhere in the Amazon jungle. You won't want to use these tactics if you're having a serious discussion about the evidence, or if you're arguing with a friend, but if you're just looking to have a little fun, try this out. I've actually rediscovered a fun little creationist argument recently that I hadn't run into much until now. Someone posted on one of my videos about how he conceded that the evidence for evolution was exactly as I presented it. He said that he understood it, but that he just felt that he reached a different conclusion, and that his conclusion was just as valid as mine. I talked about fossil evidence and DNA evidence, and how these reinforce each other, and how speciation occurs, and how the physical evidence supports it. Then he simply drew the conclusion that actually it wasn't evidence for evolution at all. So I essentially said, well, okay, so scientists spent hundreds of years figuring out exactly how this all works, with each mechanism in the chain of speciation painstakingly studied and verified, and I've spent several comment blocks explaining how it works to you, and you're still going to basically tell me that it's magic? Even if you're going to put various forms of magic on the table as a possible solution, I've shown you a natural system that is observable and proven to work. Don't expect me to believe it's really invisible underpants gnomes doing the work, if you can't even put forth any evidence. That debate ended rather abruptly. I ran into an oldie but goodie recently too. It's the old human giving birth to a chimp argument. It's usually some variation of, well, if humans evolved from apes, then why don't we sometimes give birth to ape babies? This argument is easy to destroy. Just say something like, oh, so all these changes that the fossil record shows took a few million years, you want that to be undone in a couple generations? This would actually prove creation, not evolution. So let me give this straight. You want me to prove evolution to you by proving creation?
Hi, Snowball. Do you and Mojo want to make some little saber-toothed tiger babies? Yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, creationists are silly, aren't they? What do you think, Mojo? You want to make some saber-toothed tiger babies with Snowball? No? Well, alright.
A modification of this, as the creationists I argued with recently said, is, shouldn't we be able to reconstruct the DNA so it's like evolution in reverse? To this you can say, sure, you could hypothetically genetically engineer something to be whatever you want it to be, assuming you know what the genome looks like. But what exactly does that prove? We already know that DNA is the code for the different variations between species, so that's like cutting up a sheet of paper and then taping it back together to show you that it can actually be made into a whole sheet of paper again. What in the world is the point of that? What exactly does that prove? That might actually have been a cool parlor trick back in the year 1500, but it's 2010 now, and you better ask some questions that are a little bit more cutting edge. So, that's it for this episode, everyone. Until next time, remember, always be thinking.